A new musical based on the extraordinary life of late South African singer and political activist Miriam Makeba is coming to the Emerson Paramount Center. It's an electrifying portrait of a revolutionary artist's singular voice and vision. And joining me now is the musical's writer and star, Somi Kakoma, and the director of artistic programming at Arts Emerson, Rane Pinoy. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
Somi, the show
Karen.
brings Somi, the show brings to life Makeba's journey from South Africa to the United States and how that opened a new world for her as an artist. So talk about how her journey resonates with your own experience.
Sure. Well, as an African woman, as a vocalist, as an artist, I think that I always think of Miriam Makeba as the original space maker, right? She was the first African artist to arrive on the global cultural stage and to really hold space for African artists like myself. So she, as an original space maker, as the person who paved the way, I believe that we're all indebted to her in some small way. And I definitely am in my own journey as an artist, indebted to Mama Miriam. As we call her at home. So really, for me, this is an homage to someone whom I believe really deserves more celebration. You know, there was a kind of a time in the 60s when she married Stokely Carmichael and was ostensibly blacklisted from the cultural scene in the United States. And I think that kind of violent cultural erasure has sustained itself in some small way. So, I mean, in some very large way. So this is a small way of trying to undo the silence around her name and her legacy.
Somi, Dreaming Zinzile is your first play. It took 7 years to make this project come to life. How did Makeba's story actually inspire you?
How did it inspire me? I mean, I think when one knows what she's been through and how much she survived, I think we all know her work as an anti-apartheid activist, as a voice for the African people and the kind of global struggle for the liberation of Black people. But so I think, you know, how can one not be inspired, first of all, by that work, but then also when you realize on a personal level all that she was carrying in addition to the work she was doing as an activist and as an artist, it really speaks to her generosity and grace. I was so deeply moved by that as somebody who considers myself a lifelong admirer of her work, to realize there's so much I didn't know about her. That just inspired me all the more to want to tell her story and realize that many people probably don't know all that she was carrying. So this is really a testament to her generosity and grace.
Ronnie, I'm going to turn to you now. What's the message to the audience as they're watching this beautiful performance?
Oh, absolutely. So I think it's entirely about legacy. So whenever we at Arts Emerson and myself personally met Somi, we all knew what an incredible tour de force artist that Somi was as a vocalist. And in thinking about the legacy that Miriam Makeba has advanced, it's just so clear that Somi is really the natural evolution of that legacy and is carrying that forward, both in her artistry and in the activism that she's bringing to the world. So I really hope that that the audiences who come to this piece, while they're going to be enjoying an incredible musical with some outstanding music, it's also really an opportunity to reflect on an incredible life and to see that everything that Miriam Makeba went through, we're still working through in this moment. And there's so much that we're standing on the shoulders of, and so much that can be changed.
We've been watching some of the rehearsal footage, and it got me going just listening to the footage. The music just sounds so upbeat and uplifting, Somi.
Thank you for that. I mean, I think that is the irony of it all, is that, you know, when you think about Miriam Makeba, you don't necessarily think of the sadness. You don't really necessarily think about the struggle politically and personally. And that, again, speaks to her generosity, because the music does uplift the spirit and the heart, and hopefully call people to lean into what they love in their own lives and lean into using their voice to help others as well.
Ronnie, Arts Emerson is staging another upcoming performance that celebrates 2 centuries of Black music. Tell us about The Parable of the Sower and why it is characterized as a political work of theater.
Yes, absolutely. So we're thrilled in April to be bringing Toshi Regan and the incredible Parable of the Sower to the Majestic Theater. And this is a adaptation of Octavia Butler's seminal Afrofuturist work, Parable of the Sower. And this is a piece that I'm so thrilled that Octavia Butler's work is finally being celebrated at the level of, say, like 1984 or The Handmaid's Tale as being a powerful dystopic tale of, what is really could be ahead of us as a society. And the hopefulness in Parable of the Sower is that it really, it lays a different kind of path forward. And, Toshi is such a legendary artist and is part of her own legacy of incredible folk and American music. And this is a piece that we've been hoping to have for some time and was delayed because of COVID-19. So finally, after many years, we're so excited to have her in our space.
Ronnie, this is your first season as Director of Artistic Programming. Speak about the creative diversity and vision that you have for Arts Emerson and some of your background.
Absolutely. So thanks, Karen. So I've now been at Arts Emerson about 6 or 7 months, which of course feels like a short time and a long time. But the thing that really drew me to Arts Emerson was the commitment to connecting across difference. So in my own background, I'm Laguna Pueblo in Cherokee, Native American, and the thinking about the stories that we tell ourselves, both as individuals and as a society, I think that there's so much work that we need to do to restore that work for ourselves, meaning that, we have if we really want to build the Boston that we want to see, we need new stories in addition to the ones that we've told ourselves. So in this season, I have the incredible privilege of stewarding the programming that was set before my time here. And now I'm in the very exciting position of thinking about where Arts Emerson goes from here, which is certainly going to be a deep continuation of putting the work of the world on stage. And also, I hope, deepening what it means to think about racial resilience and what it means to think about being in right relationship with the earth and with Indigenous peoples. So that's a kind of hint of what I'm hoping will be deepening the commitment that Arts Emerson has already made over
Sounds
time.
like great things are ahead. Ronnie and Somi, thank you so much for being here today. We want to let everybody know that tickets to Dreaming Zenzile are available for this month's 5 performances at the Emerson Paramount Center. That's February 23rd through the 27th, and you can buy them online at artsemerson.org. Up next, Being Muhali, Portraits as Resistance, an intense exhibit from a South African visual activist confronting issues of identity, politics, and self-representation. An intimate look at the strength and vulnerability of Muhali's private identity that sustains their public persona. That's next on City